Hello everybody and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Deborah Hatswell and you're listening to BBR Investigations. Today I am sharing the second chat between myself and Daisy. For any new listeners, there is a link below in the description that will take you to part 1, where Daisy explains that she had an experience with a creature that we would call a dogman on her family farm around 18 years ago now. And there's been interaction throughout those 18 years. The past couple of months, just before a quiet season, he has been around on the property quite a lot. Now, chatting with Daisy, we discussed what it's like to be a witness to a cryptid creature and how you navigate that going forward. Last week when we chatted, my audio was awful. It was really, really choppy. So Daisy didn't feel like she could get across what she wanted to explain. And that's quite normal, actually. Even when the audio's not bad, I can speak to the witness for a first time and other memories will come in. They'll remember things the following day. So I usually try and sit down with them again if I can and make note of all those things. Daisy had a dream after we spoke. Obviously, she went to bed at the night time and she had a dream, and it was incredibly lucid. The words that I'm about to speak now are the words that he, because we don't have his name, had to share with her. And she said, I dreamed of him. This is only the second time I've ever dreamed of him, despite all that's happened. It was a dream. It wasn't a flash, but it felt so lifelike. He came to me, still in the same beautiful colours, but he was much bigger, and he was down on all fours, because he said it would scare me too much if he stood up. He said they are the ancient wardens of the earth and nature, and that basically they made the nature on earth. We, humans, were a mistake that was never meant to be. They're involved in something that happens to nature early every morning. He said lots more, but I didn't catch all of it. He said they walk the ancient paths, even when they've been built on in modern times. And if we did some research into that, we would find that these places had a lot of problems when things were being built. I've never done automatic writing, Deb, but that's what it feels like. And he kept going on that he needed me to tell you. He kept saying, tell her, tell her. But I can't tell you how much he kept going on about them being the wardens and the keepers. The energy we fear is also the energy that they use to communicate. And it's not necessarily meant to scare us. That's how we react to it. And yeah, he looks after me. And he said that his eyes have changed to more human now. As I said, it was a dream, but it was so real, incredibly real. If I hadn't been asleep, I would have said it was a flash. Now, this is more common than people actually realise. It happened for me in a dream when I was stuck in the years of fear. And I dreamt that I woke up in a forest and I was lay on a log. It was a beautiful forest. The sun was coming down. The leaves were dappling on top of me. And I was the comfiest and warmest and most loved I'd ever been in my life. It was an amazing feeling. And as I sat up off the log, I could see almost like a village of beings really moving around, just in complete ignorance of me, just going about their daily tasks. And as I looked to the side of me, there's a wild woman there, and she's completely beautiful. Even though she's covered in hair from head to toe, she is stunningly beautiful. She's majestic, and the feeling I got from her was serenity, a calmness that I'd never felt in life before. And she patted the ground at the side of her. She never spoke to me, but I knew that she wanted me to sit down. And I was too scared to do that. I couldn't do it. I just shook my head. And in my mind, I heard, it's okay, you're not ready yet, but you will be. And then I woke up at home. And it was for all it was a dream, it was real. I could smell the forest. I could feel the forest. And I recognised it somehow, like I'd known it before. And honestly, I did everything I could for days after to get back into that dream. It's the most loved I've ever felt in my life. And I've never been able to do that. Unlike Daisy, the creature that I saw, that I had communication with softened himself, so he didn't scare me as much. And his messages are the same, that the earth was made for animals and nature, and as humans are, a scourge upon it, in all honesty. And I don't mean that in a personal way. I mean, throughout history, we have done our absolute best to destroy anything that is on the land naturally. We mine it, we log it, we build on it, we tear it to pieces. And I know that many of you out there feel that tear inside you, because I do. And they are telling us they don't need us. They don't need us on this planet. But we need to fix up as a species and start realising that it isn't us and them. It's us. There are thousands of us out there who feel this, who understand it, who connect with it. And Daisy is one of those people. It's an incredibly confusing path to walk. And many of us walk it alone for such a long time. But there are millennia of us. We're more than a tribe. And we have the same wants, the same thoughts, the same confusion, the same fear. And talking with each other, normalizing that conversation is incredibly empowering. And that's what this is about. If human beings follow the path that was set for them by other human beings, the ones at the top, the ones that benefit, if we can change that and go back to what we used to be, this would be a different world for all of us going forward. So when you listen tonight to our conversation, try and keep that in mind. And tomorrow, as you go about your day, think about it and ask yourself, what's your part in this? What's the next step on your journey for you? Next, you'll hear our chat that me and Daisy had just a couple of days ago now. I find it incredibly refreshing to be able to just sit down at home with a cup of tea and chat with someone in their home with a cup of tea, rather than bring them into the studio and make everybody nervous. I like to keep things as comfortable and as down to earth as possible. So you will hear my dog in the background. You might hear Daisy's dog. You might hear people walking about, because that's how I want this to go going forward. I want to normalise this conversation. We should be able to have this conversation, whether we're sat on a riverbank or with our friends in a cafe or at home chatting with a friend online. And I hope you enjoy our chat just as much as I did having it. And to everybody that's written in and said thank you to Daisy, I would like to reiterate that. Thank you for sitting down and having this conversation with me, because we've already had people come forward ready to share their story online in an interview. And that's because Daisy was brave enough to do that.
I want to fill in some bits that I missed out last week, basically, and go into a bit of detail about what happened in January 23 by the Laurel Tree. Just tell you briefly, quickly, that I love being out in the moon. I love being out in the moon, but because it's been so active recently, I've not been outside late at night as much as I would love to. This particular night, it was full moon, like I said, January 23, and about 10 o'clock went out to do the horse, and I wasn't feeling anything hostile, but it wasn't great either. So I thought, right, I'll stay in my bedroom. I light candles. I'll do what I can do in my bedroom. Then about 2 a.m., the moon was blazing through my windows, and I thought, right, it's no good. I've got to be outside. I've got to do my thing. Basically stand naked under the moon, and it is an amazing feeling. It's like being plugged into a recharger. Anyway, so I walked down the back garden with my dog, who, as I've said before, can be extremely aggressive to other people. He's very, very protective over me. And instantly we got out of my bedroom. He was unhappy. He was walking along beside me with his tail down. It was just droopy at that point. And normally he would be sniffing and pulling and basically wanting me to let him off the lead so he can do his own thing. He wasn't doing any of that. We went down the bottom of the garden to this big old, very old laurel tree bush. And I mean, gosh, it's probably 15, 20 foot high. This laurel tree is a really, really well-established old one.
Yeah.
Anyway, and down there, there's a gap by the field where the moon just blazes down there. So I thought, right, I'll stand down there and do my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I got down there and looked down at my dog, and he was instantly unhappy. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not actually going to strip off here. I'll just stand here and just look at the moon and just breathe her in. And then instantly in my head was, you're not safe. You need to go back into your bedroom. And I was determined to try and outride that fear and get back to how I had always been. So I stood there for a bit longer. My dog was at this point incredibly unhappy. And then I heard the breathing.
Right.
And it was to my right-hand side in that big laurel tree, which I was probably only 2 foot away from. And it sounded like the breathing was in my ear, but above my ear, but that side. And you could tell from the breathing that whatever it was incredibly heavy and big. It was, if it was the same, and I do believe it was the same as I saw 18, 20 years ago, he was much bigger, much heavier. And this time I felt malice coming off of him. And it was a really horrible, deep fear. I mean, it literally makes your bones run cold. Yeah. It's a really, really, it's absolutely terrifying. And I stood there thinking, okay, so what do I do now? I looked down at my dog, and he was, I wouldn't say he was shivering, but he was right in behind me. Yeah. By this point, his tail was between his legs, laying up across his stomach. And I thought, okay, if that was a person in there, either, for whatever reason, he would be going absolutely ballistic trying to get them. I mean, he would be going mad, and all he wanted to do was come back into the bedroom. So I thought, okay, we just walk away quietly, and we just walked back up the hill, up to the garden, into my bedroom, very, very quietly and slowly. And all the time I was thinking, something's going to grab me, something's going to grab him. I was bloody terrified. And we got into my bedroom, and I didn't sleep for ages. That fear, that real deep fear, just lingered for ages. And since then, I haven't done it. I haven't tried to do it again. I haven't been out in the moonlight, and it's something that I've done all my life. I go out earlier in the evening, but basically that area now I won't go to at the night time. I just won't do it. The fear that you feel from that is so deep. It's I have conflicting feelings about this now since I mean, the fear is there. There is no doubting that fear that is there. And the fear when I'm walking up to the woods it could be a beautiful sunny day and I'm told to leave because I'm in danger. That fear is incredibly real. And no amount of anybody saying that these dogmen, Bigfoot, cryptid creatures are, we all know they're out there, but they're not going to hurt you. No amount of anybody telling me that I'm not going to get hurt takes away that fear, because the menace that you feel from these creatures is incredible. But at the same time, as we've talked before, I also feel that in a way he looks after me. So I don't know if the malice that I feel from him, I keep banging on about it, but it's incredible. It's really, really deep. Fear that I fear from him is that just him driving me indoors because there's something else outside that he's protecting me from. The only thing I can't, and I do see that, and I do feel that, but then I can't see why I also feel that he gets pleasure from scaring me. So if he's just scaring me to get indoors, why is he getting pleasure from scaring me to get indoors? I can't work that one out. But there we go.
No, it's the same for me. I have the same fear, and it doesn't go. It never leaves you. It doesn't matter how good you get at it, and it doesn't go. And honestly, we got to trust our gut instinct, haven't we? We've got to. We have no choice in that.
We really have. We really do. And it's primitive in us, isn't it? It's always been with us. We we wouldn't have survived, we wouldn't have evolved as we are now without that instinct to keep ourselves safe from the sin and the unsin. We evolved to run away from things.
Yeah, we do,
and
you know.
That's what that feeling is.
I have one of my patrons, Karen, actually asked. She asked me if you'd amended your behaviour since, and I said yes, she has. She's had to, and Mum had to as well. And she said to me, Debbie, are they dependent on us in some way? You know, why do they scare us? Yet at times they protect us. And she actually said to me, do you think that they feed off dopamine?
I do believe they do, and it's something that I've been trying to find out as much as I can about it. I really do.
Yeah, I do. I agree.
I've just got to explain to people listening that sometimes I lose what Debbie's saying. So if I sound a bit vague, that's why. But I do believe, and I do believe that that's a difficult one, because at the same time as believing they are solid, there's also a spiritual element to them. So are they feeding off of the energy that or the fear that they cause in us? Does that give them energy?
Yeah.
It's a deep one, isn't it?
It is. And it was something that a lot of people picked up on. They were saying, is he a friend? Is he a foe?
I believe both. And recently I've been leaning more to, again, I keep on saying that so many people out there saying these things aren't going to hurt you, but then we have to be realistic and remind ourselves about all the people that go missing, but also all the people that are chased out of woodlands in this country, in America, all over the world, and they are absolutely terrified, but they're not hurt. We have to remind ourselves about that. And so recently I've been thinking, and he's been just bang back a bit. He's been very quiet the last 4 weeks, but I had a couple of weeks ago. It was pouring down with rain, absolutely hammering down. About midnight, I heard him walk up to my bedroom window on 2 feet. He literally turned. I didn't see him, but I heard him walk up to the bedroom window. 2 big, heavy feet, and then he walked away, and it was splushing in the wet grass. And then he turned around, walked away, and instantly came back and stood there for a few seconds, and then walked away. And I thought, actually, do you know what that felt like? I mean, it was bloody scary. I was sitting on my bed thinking, Christ, what the hell? You know, what am I going to do if he pulls that window out the frame? I don't stand a chance. Anyway, but it felt like he was checking up on me. It just felt like he was saying, okay, are you all right? I'm just having a look. And yep, you're fine, so I'm going again. But after him walking away that second time, and this is what frightened me, was that just the few seconds are long enough for him to go down to the bottom of the garden, probably to where that laurel tree is. And then I heard it running back up that garden on 4 feet. And really heavy, really heavy. And he charged up that garden on 4 feet. I can see him in my head. And I just waited for him to hit that door like he often does. Nothing. Went just quiet. And I didn't even hear him go away. And I don't know why he did that, because that was scary. But looking through or walking up to my window felt like a friend out there that I wasn't that great pleased to see, but at the same time they were just checking up on me to make sure I'm safe.
But an intrusion into your space.
Exactly.
I mean, I can relate, and
I do believe now that there's mixed feelings, but I do believe that maybe people that I believe everybody's psychic to a certain extent, but obviously some people are more, and maybe that's because of experiences that have happened to them in life, or their connection with the earth and things. And I think that these creatures are drawn into people that are more connected to the earth, and ancient forests. And I was thinking about that this morning, that if they are just if they just live in the ancient forest, then why are people seeing them at the borders of cities? And I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting to find out how new those borders of the cities are? And
yes,
that's exactly it. And because that is basically their land. That is land they walked on. And so if people have seen them in the cities now, it's not really surprising, is it?
No.
Because they're still walking where they always want to walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and is there something behind, if people have lost loved ones and they're, maybe they go deeper into themselves, and is that why they're seeing these creatures? It's just something I'm thinking about. There's so many things. Anyway, I want to tell you things that happened to me as a kid.
Yes.
And I think they were all maybe building up to him being close to me. I do feel that's a big part of it. Like I was just saying about being psychic. When I was about 6 years old, I'm just going to go straight into it. When I was about 6 years old, I remember coming downstairs and I was a bit late, and all my brothers and sisters, there were 6 of us, so a big family, all sitting at the table having cornflakes. And I just said to Mum, I said, our aunt has died. I said, Aunt Kate has just died. And Mum turned around and she went, well, don't be silly. Within about 10 minutes, my dad came back in from work on the tractor, and he'd just popped in to see his mum, who told him that her sister, Kate, so Dad's aunt, had just passed away from a blood clot.
Right.
So that was basically the earliest memory of things that I can remember starting to open up in me.
Yes.
And then it got worse. It got much worse. And at this point, it would be dreams. I would dream of, and they used to terrify me.
Yeah.
I dreamt of cattle, and I don't know if anybody knows cattle, and the term of cattle blowing up is basically when they've eaten something, they get gases in their stomach, it ferments, and it can kill them. And if you find them, they'd be laying on their side with their stomach really extended. You can save them if you catch them early enough. Anyway, I was dreaming that I was looking out the front room window, and there were dead cattle laying all over the farm with their stomachs blowing up, and it frightened me so much. And then literally probably a week, maybe 2 weeks later, the cattle got out of the yard, and they got into a grain shed, and they ate sacks and sacks of grain. And they all blew up, and it killed about 15 cattle. It was horrendous. Then after that, it was pigs. I dreamt that we always had pigs at the bottom of the garden. We'd fatten them up for the freezer. And I dreamt that the pigs were all covered in bright pink spots, and they were poorly. And it was the morning. That morning, my mum went down there with table scraps, and 2 of the pigs were dead. And we had a vet out to see the others, and they had swine fever. And although with swine fever, they're not covered in pink spots, my child's mind was saying it's a fever, so they've got spots. And then it was things like, which were so upsetting. Our dogs are members of our family, and one of my mum's dogs, he was a golden retriever cross spaniel, and he was huge. He was so gentle, just as golden retrievers are. Black and hairy, and I remember seeing him wandering around the garden, and it's upsetting now, with blood coming out of his nose, his eyes, his bum, every hair follicle. He had blood coming out of, and then he did start to bleed. He started bleeding from his winky, and it turned out he had pancreatitis, cancer, and he lived, obviously on drugs. He lived for a while, and we had blankets everywhere to catch the blood. And then when it was too bad, we had to help him go. But it was awful, and it was horrendous. And I remember at this point, I was so scared of the things that I would see. I wouldn't tell anyone. I would think, if I don't tell anyone, it won't happen. But of course, it would always happen. And so then I went the opposite way, and I had a friend, and I'd tell her, and I would say, I'm telling you this because I know it's going to happen. And if I tell you, I might be able to change it. But it never could. It would always happen. One particular day, I I'd been staying overnight at my boyfriend's. I had my little Westie with me. And I went to the back door to unlock it, and I heard a dog the other side.
Oh.
And anyway, as I unlocked it, the dog, a big black one, came out to meet me, and I actually stroked him on the head. I remember feeling him, and he was wagging his tail to see me, and him and my little then Westie went running off down to the back garden. And at this point, I thought, hang on a minute. Mum always takes her dog to work with her. You know, I've just stroked this dog. Who's that dog? So anyway, so I called them. I called my little dog, and who I thought was Mum's dog. I thought she must have left him at home when she went to work, but we never do. So I called them, and my little Westie came up from the back garden completely on her own. And then my mum turned up from work with her dog, and it turns out the dog that had greeted me at the door was one that had passed over 10 years before. I had stroked him as solid as a normal dog. Same thing happened one morning. I got up early, came down the stairs, opened the stairs door, and there's this big black dog standing there greeting me, tail wagging. And I remember talking to him, stroking him, and like I said, physically touching him. He was completely solid.
Yeah.
And then he was just gone, and that was it. Same thing.
You're an animal shaman.
Oh, so, well, people have told me that.
Yeah, that's what you are, an animal shaman.
Trying to think. Well, animals normally come to me when they're hurt, like Merlin, my owl. I have a tawny owl, and he's 8 years old. I had actually a very similar situation. I'd got back from a boyfriend's, a different boyfriend, and I'd been away for a couple of days, and I had my little dog with me, grabbed Mum's dog and went off up to the fields. As I got up the fields, I realised one of them had been sprayed with a crop sprayer. So I thought, right, I'm not taking the dogs along there. I'll go down this other path. I'm walking down this, backtracking a second. I'm walking down a path, and there was Merlin, probably under 2 weeks old, little tawny owl, sitting in the grass. I picked him up thinking, okay, I'll put him in the hedge, and then he can scrabble back up the oak tree like they do. And it was at that point that I realised the cattle had trod on one of his wings and damaged. He can fly, but he can't fly well enough to hunt, obviously feed himself. Going back to Merlin, 2 weeks before I found Merlin, I had what I call a flash.
Right.
And these flashes can happen at any point during the day, normally when I'm gardening or something like that. So when I'm connected to the earth. And in this flash, I saw Merlin, and I just saw this little brown ball of fluff in the long grass with these huge big eyes looking up at me. And that was exactly how I found him, in the grass looking up at me. And so I knew it was coming to me.
Yeah.
And my cats, I found my cats. She had been dumped in her wood, and she had obviously been beaten up. She had 3 huge big wounds around her, and I was opening up the box. She had been dumped in a box, and I was opening up a box thinking I'm going to be careful because there's probably dead ones in there, and there's obviously one alive, and it's probably going to fly out and run. Anyway, she was incredible. She literally leapt out that box straight onto round my neck and just clung to me, absolutely clung to me, And
they reckon animals recognise the right people.
Well, just so. My horse came to me with a broken neck, and I was told 3 times I've been put down, and he's 28 years old, just a couple of days ago, and one of my best friends. All my animals come to me in this way.
I was going to prompt you. I wanted to ask you about. We were talking about Merlin. There was an occasion, wasn't there, when Merlin picked up on him when you were in your bedroom.
Yes. The last time he came to me, the Dogman was when I said it at the window just now.
Yeah.
But just about a week before that, I'd been out to do my horse, and it felt quiet. It was very peaceful out there. And I stood for a minute thinking, because it was about a month ago, because it was one of the first quiet nights when it wasn't around. And I stood there and I thought, my God, he's not here. And I thought he must be here. I stood there to try and pick him up, but he was not there.
Yeah.
But lovely. I was so peaceful. It was really peaceful. Anyway, got into my bedroom and I'm wandering around thinking, well, what film shall I watch tonight? Blah, blah, blah. And then I felt him and it was really intense, like that fear just straight into your bones, really intense. And I stood there thinking, he's looking through the window and I really do not want to look through that window because I don't want to see him. And with that, my dog who was on the bed lifted up his head and started a real deep, like low grumble in his chest. And Merlin was staring out the window.
Yeah.
Merlin is in a huge big cage at the bottom of my bed. He was staring out that window. And then I don't know if he moved, but Merlin just went into a panic.
No.
And he was throwing himself around the cage. And I was so worried he was going to bash his wings or, really hurt himself. So he saw him. And that has happened, in the middle of the night. Merlin will just go mad. And I know he's just looked through that window. It's like it's like a French door, but it's only got half a window straight out into the garden.
Yeah.
And Merlin's cage is beside that, so he can, obviously he can see outside. And but that was that fear. Well, that was horrible.
It's understandable. It's absolutely understandable. I mean, there's been times when he's been on your roof. There's not, there's just how do you navigate that?
It's horrible. The first time he got onto my roof was about 7 years ago, and then just a few weeks ago, I had been watching telly. It was about midnight. I got up, turned the telly off, and I was just got into bed, reached over to turn my side light off, and he came over my dad's shed roof, which is attached to my bedroom, and hit my bedroom roof. And then he was, if you can imagine a man on your roof and then slipping on slippery tiles and going down on all four for a minute and trying to grab tiles to get back up. And he went straight over the ridge tiles and then back down the other side towards my open skylight, which I had only just opened. I always, as a rule, have both my windows open. I'm an outdoors person. Even if it's freezing cold, I have to have cold air in my bedroom. But I had been shutting that skylight because of the hornets. And that night I had only literally just seconds before, as I got up to turn the telly off, opened it thinking I can't bear it. I've got to have some fresh air around me. And he came over that roof and headed straight towards that window. So, of course, I leapt out the window, out the bed, slammed the window shut, and I stood there thinking, do I really want to stand under this window to see him? But I stood there and I didn't see anything. I didn't see him. But and that was the night for some reason, I've got a trail camera out there and it faces away from my bedroom. That night, I put it facing my bedroom, facing that French window, thinking,
I'll get him.
I might catch him if he looks through that window. And so when obviously he went over my roof that night, I was thinking, brilliant, gotcha. If you're jumping off that roof at that end of the garden, I'll catch you on that camera. Nothing. Oh, well, I got a big flash of white light, and that was it. It was the brightest white light you can, imagine. Like lighting going off.
I was just thinking white light is energy, isn't it? When you think about it, Steve Heavican, his daughter, Steve went to Cannock Chase and had an experience of his own, and things started to happen at his daughter's house, and something went to the window and actually tapped onto the window.
I've had, sorry, you just reminded me, I was sitting indoors with my dad. I live after my dad. So, sitting indoors, it was just before the clocks changed, I think, so it was still quite dark, and watching telly, sitting on the sofa, my back to the window, and something just tapped, just like you would with the knuckle of your own finger tapping on the glass. Tapped on and jumped out my skin, as you can imagine. And I didn't see anything. I wasn't really expecting to, but I turned around and I didn't see him, but I'm absolutely positive. And when I went out to check my horse, I could feel him out there.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. In a nutshell, that's what it's like, isn't it? That's what life becomes after you have a life before the event. And then you have the whole after the event and you're a different person.
Well, that's it. And I know a lot of people out there would say, are you putting this in your head? Are you frightening yourself? And I could understand that completely. But I know, hand on heart, when he's out there, we have such a connection now. I know without a doubt, it's not me just scaring myself. I'm not putting him into my head. He's there. And recently, like I said, he's been quiet for a while now. And it's so relaxing and it feels so nice. And when I go out there, I'm like, can I feel him? I'm like, no, he's not here. And I do a sort of, it's like my brain is putting feelers out and he's not there. And so I know, hand on again, that if it was just me putting that fear into my head, like a lot of people say, well, then I wouldn't feel that relaxation. It would be there the whole time. But this has happened before. He'll go away for 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month or so, and then he'll come back. And so I know that I'm right. I feel him. I know when he's out there. And since, because this last year he's been so active. And so now I've started watching other program, things on YouTube and stuff. And I've heard other people say the same. That they know when they're there.
I know when I know when mine's about. I just know. I just know he's around. And sometimes when I'm frightened or I'm scared, I ask for him.
See, I've recently started doing that. Now I won't say settled down to him being around more. That's because the fear is still there. But I'm aware that now that I'm convincing myself that he's not going to hurt me. I'm trying to convince myself he's not going to hurt me or my animals. So now it's almost like I'm trying to talk with him in my head. I ask him what he's up to, what he wants from me, and I think as maybe I get better at that, or I won't say the connection gets deeper because it's incredibly deep already, but maybe I'll get better at that. Maybe I'll be able to hear what he's telling me more.
It strengthens. You kind of settle into it. The fear's always there. It's always there for me. I live on a ground floor now, and I can't open my bedroom windows. So if it's there for someone like me who deals with it on a daily basis, it is always going to be there. But you will learn a way to just navigate it. You will, because you don't have any other choice.
Yeah. I was thinking about this because, like I said to you, I have the hornets here. That French window, because I hate being too hot. It literally makes me feel ill. I'm a winter person. Anyway, so that's a French window in the summer. I've always had that open from about June right through till October. Well, obviously last year I closed early because of him, but and now I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to do? I put a net curtain over it so that the hornets can't get in. Have that window open, then I can shut the skylight, and then the air can just come in.
You just tell it,
thinking, what the hell am I going to do?
You tell him, don't you dare come on my roof again. Don't you? What would you do if it was a man?
I think I'd have to get me shotgun out.
We'll do the same. Do the same. You set your boundary. This is my home, and you will not scare me in my home. I'm not sure what you want with me, but that's my boundary.
See, I am, because of after talking to you and hearing, other people's experiences, I am getting braver, and I don't think it will be long before I can talk myself into being that brave with him. Put it that way.
No, it's a learning curve, Daisy. It is a learning. Take the pressure off. It's a learning curve. Nobody hands you a book. Nobody tells you how you're supposed to deal with life going forward. You're doing your absolute best that you can, and that's all you can do.
It is. It's all you can do.
Yeah, it's all you can do. It's
just that I don't think, you understand how it feels, but I don't, unless anybody has had an encounter with one of these creatures, they cannot understand the deep fear that they put inside you.
No, you can't. It's like being bitten by a dog when you're a child. You will fear a dog the rest of your life. It's like you said it before, it's primeval. It's just within us.
It is. It really is.
I had a couple of questions come in for you. Not the ones that me and you have had anyway. So Steve, I told you, but he lives in Bedfordshire. He lives where the 3 counties meet.
Yeah.
Right. And he's seen the same creature as you for at least 18 years. And he wondered, because you live in an area where a number of counties meet, he just was asking, he said to, will you ask me, Deb, does she think that maybe the county boundaries are important in some way?
I do.
Yeah,
I do. I think they're as important as the rivers and the streams.
Yeah, I agree.
There's definitely a link there. It's the same as ley lines. I believe that they are all basically the same.
Yeah.
They're all putting out maybe the same energy.
I agree.
And these creatures are all about energy. They are about drawing into energy. They suck not suck the energy out of you, but
yeah, they drain you.
Going back to that fear, I believe that is part of the energy they're causing. That it's a difficult one. And that's going something else. You've just reminded me about I was thinking about, are they spiritual? Are they solid like us? I think they're both.
Yeah,
and then I was thinking, okay, so what are they feeding on? Are they purely feeding on energy? And if that's the case, then they are more spiritual. But around here, we have always had hundreds of deer. I could go up in the field before. I could see 11 deer in one field. Unbelievably, I have seen 18 roe deer in one field.
Right.
Wow. Our dogs were always chasing rabbits. There were rabbits everywhere, hundreds and hundreds of rabbits. I know there's been diseases recently, but other places the rabbits have come back in. And pheasants, partridges. There has always been so much wildlife around here. Half of it's gone. You're lucky if you walk up the woods now and see 2 deer. So, and I did actually. Last summer, I found a dead roe deer, and as I was walking up to it, I thought, okay, someone's dog's had that, or poachers have had it. It hadn't been shot. No one's dog had chewed it. It had one hole in the side of its head. Right. One deep hole in the side of its head. Now, obviously, nothing had eaten on it, and something did go back and eat on it, but I think it was the badgers. But so, are these things flesh and blood? Are they? What are they eating? They've got to eat. So it's either energy or it's flesh or it's
and blood.
Both.
Or it's both. Yeah, you asked, where does he go? Where does he go when he vanishes for a few weeks? Well, maybe he goes further south to Bedfordshire and feeds there for a few weeks.
Yeah, I do believe they're travelling, and we've said this before. You look along all the rivers, and there's places surrounded by rivers. They've all got trees around them. There's even if it's just narrow woodlands following those rivers, they've all got trees. It would be so easy for these creatures to use those rivers.
It would
as roads.
No, you're right.
It really would be, and that's going back to the counties or meeting. To me, it's the same thing. I believe that the counties and the rivers are all, and ley lines are all the same.
I think we based a lot of when we were back in the day, when we were ancestors, borders would have been important energy wise as well. So the Romans, the Romans built on those ley lines for a reason. And we don't know why. It brings me into another question, and this is from HB, and she said, are there any ancient sites? Well, I'm going to look that up privately, and that's not something I'm going to be putting out there because obviously it's Daisy's home, and it won't be. Okay. No, we won't be doing that. Yeah,
I can tell you something without going into detail. Obviously, because we don't want people, to hear. There is close to me. There's an old church that is 11th century,
right?
And I found out the history about that. Before that was there was an old wooden church.
Right.
Before that was there was a Roman villa, and before that was there, they're saying there was a place of Druid worship.
Yeah. The church always built on ancient sites. If it's priory land,
And then there is in the village. There is it's not very well known about. There is an old Stone Age fort.
Right, that makes sense.
Obviously, all grown over. There's nothing really to see. If you knew where it was, you might find some rocks and things now. I've just realised there's another one there's no moat.
Makes perfect sense to me that that he's moving around on that ground, using that energy to come in and out. Me and you chatted about it ourselves, and it was raised by other people. Are they guarding a portal in some way from something coming in or something coming out? Do you get what I mean? Is that where the fear is used?
That's something I've been thinking about. Are they guarding a portal from either us going in and contaminating it, or are they stopping
worse.
Something coming out?
Yeah, something worse coming out.
Yeah, and if that's so, have these other things come out, and is that what they're protecting us over?
Could be. One of my listeners, Liza, I think she summed it up greatly. She said, these places, Deb, where they're seen would have been a place of worship for us back in the day. We would have walked for miles and miles from counties and counties, carrying food and gifts, and laid them on the site and respected the ancients. And what you have now is like housing estates, and they feel like the land's been disrespected in some way. And they haven't been, when we tune into them, they become more real. And that stopped a lot when the Romans come, and then obviously the witch trials. And from then on, society said, don't be silly. You're not experiencing these things. It's all in your head. It's not. You're a human being connecting to the ground in the same way that that creature is to the energy below your feet. And at times we meet, ancient people and us meet. And I honestly believe that it's all to do with the respect of the land. And as ourselves as human beings, we could be so much more. And I think they have a warning for us. I think that warning is, we don't need human beings to be here, and you are killing your planet.
That's exactly what I think. The same thing. I mean, and basically at the end of the day, this might sound harsh to a lot of people. Nature is more important than us. Nature will survive without us.
Exactly that.
But we can't survive without it, can we?
No, we can't, can we?
So what does that say over who's got the right to be here?
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same as you. We've encroached on their land, haven't we? We've disrespected some of it. We forgot our old ways. We don't empower men and women as we used to, back in the day. We don't celebrate their abilities. But I'm seeing a change. I'm seeing a big change from where I'm sitting. Lots of people are going back to the old ways. Lots of people are reconnecting with nature. It's a growing trend.
No, I've noticed that, and it's fantastic. It's lovely. It's actually surprised me when I've seen, I've heard of people loving to go for nice long walks, and they're people that I really wouldn't have thought had it in them, that live in cities, and they come out here and go for walks, and as long as they don't drop their litter, that's nice.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm trying to think of all the things that I've been down this morning. This is just a silly little thing. Going back to the fear, this morning, I walked down to the laurel tree, and there's a small tree down there. It's a mountain ash, and it's probably about 4, maybe 5 inches round. So it's a small tree, and I love this little tree. And it's a real, what I call it's a real lovely little grounding area.
Right.
And my dad's home this morning, and he's very hard work. So I thought, I'm just going to grab that tree for a minute, so as I was standing there, and I thought, Dogman popped in my head, and I thought, no, he's not here. And then I thought, well, what? And just for a silly second, I thought, the things that have been happening like the last 2-3 weeks, I thought, do you know what? I'm actually not as scared about him as I was. And I can cope. And if I feel him out there or I see him, I'm not going to let him terrorise me as much as I used to. And with that, a twig snapped. And you know what? I nearly crapped myself. And I thought, you silly bugger, you're just as bloody terrified of him as you always have been.
But you're learning to laugh about it
you
now.
You said yourself, you can force yourself out there. It's a beautiful morning. You want to get out the woods. You want to look at bluebells. But the moment something, even if I don't feel him, and I know it's not him, the moment that twig snaps, my brain is just like...
there's millions of us, Daisy. There's millions of us who are exactly the same. And like networking with them all is amazing, because you just think, well, it's the same for me. I go in woodlands and I do investigations, but I hear a twig snap. I don't know how to keep my feet on the ground.
You do. Once something like this has happened to you, it doesn't matter how brave you think you are, when that happens,
no,
you still become a little girl.
I'll tell you a little tale about how unconnected some folk are to nature. Where I live, it's the class as the West Pennine Moor, so now we get a lot of tourists and stuff. But we get the odd, chocolate lab in a Land Rover, Range Rover type person, and I'm out with the dog. It must have been more than 20 years ago because I was still walking. I was out with the dog on the field, and a deer come out. She's walking her dog, I'm walking mine, and a deer come out. It was only, I think it was only a road deer, and it come out, and she said, "Oh, that's a reindeer. How's that got here from Norway?" Do you remember, Mark? I was outraged when I come home, wasn't I? I come in, I was like, just been down at Bottom Fields. All my Lancashire come out. I just been Bottom Fields, and there's a lass down there. And you know what she just said to me? She just asked me if that was a reindeer. And he was like, what? I went, she just literally said, is that a reindeer? And how's it got here from Norway? So we still have a bit of a battle on our hands, don't we? But, I think that's probably a good point for us to end on, unless there's anything else you want me to cover.
No, brilliant. That's okay.
Yeah, we'll do that.
No, thank you. And just say again how much talking about this to you has helped me. And the feedback from other people has just been incredible for me to know that other people have seen it and are still going to see them and are still going through it. And it must be a bit like someone going to see a psychiatrist. It really, really does help.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. Now, sometimes I wonder, I hope I've been an help. I hope I haven't made it worse for someone, But all I can do is my best, like you, and it's all I can do. Yeah.
Well, thank God you're out there.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to speak to 3 ladies today, all in a similar situation, and I'm going to pop them into the group as we go across the weekend or next week, depending on how long I get to speak to each of them. But just know you're not alone, as know you're not alone. We're all out there, and the listeners are absolutely rooting for you. They actually said to me, "Can we have a Daisy and Deb podcast, please?" I know they really enjoyed it. It's like we were talking earlier. I'm going to let you go because I know you're busy, but it's nice to just sit and have a brew and chat about it, isn't it?
Oh, I've got my cuppa beside me and 2 digestives, and I've lit my candles and I've done lots of smudging. So
right, well, you go and fix your animals. You go fix your animals, and I'll move on to more of my doing, and I'll go and fix some humans.
All right, take care, everyone there.
Ta-ra, sweetheart. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Daisy for sharing her experiences with us, and for you guys for tuning in each week and making a safe place for people who want to come forward and share their experience in a welcoming and warm environment. And I'll be back at the same time, the same day next week. Good night, everyone.